Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Empowered Hearts podcast. We have a special guest today, Jason Nicevski, a professional MMA fighter. And yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We don't normally have men on this podcast. We've had one other man, so you are the second man on here.
I
So
feel honored.
you should. So Jason is a professional MMA fighter. You're a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Why don't you just like lay all of your accomplishments out and like just tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I started jujitsu was my first art. I started doing it as kind of, I guess you want to say, like a hobby. I was playing rugby before that, and then when that finished, I needed to try something that was still competitive because I was kind of missing that aspect of competition in my life. So I remember going to my first jujitsu class, getting absolutely destroyed, and thinking, okay, maybe this is not for me. But just like anything I do in my life, when I'm not good at something, it motivates me to want to try and be the best at it or the best that I can anyway. So that hobby pretty much turned into me going, every day, then twice a day, then basically cleaning the gym for membership so I could always be around. And then from then, I was just kind of doing really well in the local scene, kind of just winning like local tournaments and doing international tournaments and doing really well in those. And fighting wasn't even really in the plan. It was, I was just doing jujitsu, competing in jujitsu, and really enjoying that. And then our gym on Sundays, a few guys used to rent it that were professional MMA fighters to spar, and they were from different gyms, and they kind of located there because it was kind of central to everybody. So I would kind of see these guys train, and they were really good, and just became friendly with them. And they had kind of heard. And they kind of knew about like what I was doing grappling wise. So they had asked me to come in and help them with some grappling positions. And I said, yeah, I can help you guys absolutely. And they asked, kind of how much do you charge? And I said, well, fighters are all broke. So, why don't you guys teach me how to box and I'll teach you the ground stuff. So it was just a barter system. So we were doing this pretty regularly. And then after a while, I asked them, can I jump in and train with you guys? Because it was something new, it was a new challenge. So again, the first time I get absolutely destroyed. And then again, just like everything else, made me want to train more. So it was like that for a bit. Then I started doing a little bit better. Then I started beating some of them in the rounds. And these were guys that were all professional. They were getting paid to do this. So once I started doing well, I started to think maybe this is something that I can do. So I took, I think, just one amateur fight because at the time there wasn't really a lot of amateur MMA. Now in Ontario, there's a lot of opportunities to do that and to get experience, but at that time there wasn't. So did one amateur fight and then turned professional after that. Um, Fighting on smaller shows in like Western New York, Rochester, uh, and then it just kind of went on from there. Now it's basically become the center of my life. So compete in that still, and then started teaching around that time. Taking on clients that wanted to learn like how to box and stuff like that. So just kind of that's really just been the direction my life has gone. But I couldn't really be happier with it because it's what I enjoy doing, and you know, to me, nothing is scarier than having a real job. So
Yeah,
fighting,
I
fight,
agree.
yeah. So fighting is easy.
What is grappling?
So grappling is like basically like if you would see like wrestling in the Olympics, like amateur wrestling,
Yep.
except you can do submissions on the ground, where in
Okay.
wrestling you can't. So there's chokes, there's arm locks, leg locks, stuff like that. So it's basically all of it. All of it is mixed in, except for grappling would just be everything without punching and kicking. So you can do
Okay.
takedowns and submissions,
So
stuff
does
like.
MMA fighting like combine boxing, grappling?
Yeah, it's all the arts mixed up. Like so, basically, like UFC, like MMA.
Okay.
Most people, it's easier for them to kind of associate it with the brand, like so UFC, MMA. But there's other organizations that fight MMA. But basically, like if you watch UFC, that's kind of what I do.
Okay. So how do you what determines a win?
Well, if you win by stoppage, you could knock your opponent out. You could submit your opponent, or if it goes 3 rounds, all 3 rounds, then the judges will decide, like in boxing, who won each round, and then they'll
Okay.
decide like kind of a unanimous decision, sometimes a split decision, but so decision, knockout, submission, and then there's other factors like there could be like a doctor stoppage if there's an injury and things like that.
Okay. I've never watched UFC, so I don't know.
Don't it's violent.
You will not like
I've
Krystle.
That's why I would.
Yeah, no, she
Exactly.
can't handle it.
I can't handle that stuff.
So, can you just like share a little bit about like your life prior to fighting? Like, growing up, how did you have the mindset to, because this, like, to chase after something like this, you need to
Mhm.
have determination, right? You need to have the
Mhm.
mindset to like go after something. So, what was growing up like for you? And, what did growing up look like? And where did you get the sort of oomph to chase after this or even prior to this, like for rugby, for example?
So basically, like from the beginning, like I was born, my family and I was born in Macedonia. It's a small country in the Balkans. We only have 8 to 10 million people, but the village that I was born in had about 200 people. So, people tell me they're from a small town. I'm like, no, I'm from a small town. So we moved to Canada when I was 7. So it was myself, my father, my mother, and my sister. And, we were pretty poor. Like where we're from originally is poor. Like I think now to make $100 a month is pretty normal salary, or would be considered a pretty good salary. So when we moved here, my dad was doing carpet installation. And when we first moved here, we lived in a motel on Kingston Road. That's all we could afford. And then when we wanted to save some, we found a friend of his that worked with him, another Macedonian guy. We upgraded to living in his laundry room. So 4 of us living in a laundry room, and we were in a van for a bit. So you can imagine we were pretty close. It was pretty tight, like in every sense of the word. And I just saw like his hard work. Like my dad used to leave for work at I think 3 a.m. He'd come home around 8 p.m. So when me and my sister were pretty young, there was times we wouldn't see him until the weekend, and we lived in the same house, right? So it was like in terms of like going after stuff, like I just kind of saw like his work ethic, like because the way to me that I say the way you do some things is the way you do a lot of things.
Mhm.
So when I started to do sport, I was just all in, like he was all in with that. So the first sport I played in high school was football, and it's funny because I remember our rugby coach at the time needed guys to play on the team because the team was going to be the first or second year our school was going to have it, and there wasn't enough interest, so he might have had to fold the team. So basically, like most things in my life, it kind of happened by accident because the rugby coach was my geography teacher. I used to skip his class all the time, and he said, and I was kind of a standout on the football, so he said, "Okay, Jason, I need you to come out for the rugby team because if you don't, we're not going to have enough people. We're going to have to fold the team." And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to play. I have no interest in that. I don't know anything about it." And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to give you 2 choices. You can come play on the rugby team, or I can tell your dad that you were skipping my geography class." I'm like, "All right, I'll see you there tomorrow," because I was more afraid of my dad than I am. So I showed up, loved it, and then just started going all into that, and then signed up to play club in the beaches and just outside of school rugby, and then from there was doing well. Played provincial, like Team Ontario for like my age, and then even an age up. And then they had Canada trials for our age group, so I was selected for that. And then I think there was an injury in the men's team, so I got called up to the men's team, which is usually over 21, but I think I was like 16. So I was just kind of thrown into it, from the beginning. So at that time, that was really all my focus. Like anything, I was just putting all my focus into rugby. And a guy had come to our club from Ireland, and he came to stay for the summertime, and he was mentioning that his club needed guys, and they needed guys that played my position. But the way things were at the time, it's not like there was like a lot of televised games here where people could see you like scouts. It's not like it is now. There's more opportunity, I guess you could say, for guys that play rugby here now than there was then. So I decided to go try out for the team just kind of on my own, like on my own merits and using my own money, which I didn't have a lot at the time. And basically, like my plan was, is I'm going to pay for the ticket. I'm going to go try out for the team. And if I don't make the team, I won't have enough money, but the embassy will fly me back and then I'll deal with it then. So I went there. I had a good tryout. I got signed for the team. So I played rugby in Ireland for 1 season. During that season, I was trying to get something long term. So I was looking at other clubs that would sign for long term because, you know, there's risk of injury and I wanted to make sure that I was more secure. And I ended up signing for a team in France. So I left Ireland and I was living in France for 5 years. And I was playing in Bayonne and I was loving it there. And then after that, I went to Japan to play for a year.
Wow.
So I was living in Osaka for 1 year. And then I got injured. So after I got injured, I came home. And then I was like, okay, now I got to get a real job, I guess. So it was a few months after that that I started the jujitsu because I was looking for something, you know, to do, and that's kind of, I guess, where we've got to this point. So that was kind of like from growing up to the rugby to just before the jujitsu part started.
That's wild.
Yeah. So did you get a job between coming home and jujitsu?
So when I came home from Japan, I moved back in with my family, and my father was still doing the carpet, so I would help him with the carpet business. And then I pretty much did during that time, like every construction job you can imagine. I did roofing, stucco, just anything, like just any back-breaking labor, because I wasn't like one for the, you know, to sit in an office or like to sit at a desk. It just wasn't for me. But I just remember hating it because I was so used to sport. Sport was all I had ever done, right? Like from 15 when I left home, I was just a professional athlete. I never knew anything different, right? So
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about like the mindset you need when you fight? Like how do you get into the zone of beating the shit out of someone?
Yeah, that's a good question.
for me, it's I guess everyone is different, but for me, I just competition. Like I'm the most competitive person I think you'll probably ever meet. Like, you know, like I've thrown the board in games of Monopoly before. That's how competitive I am. So it's like for me, I hate losing more than I like winning. So it's really not so much to like you said, beat the shit out of somebody. It's just to win. Like
Right.
for me, I do everything I can to prepare myself for that. And then I guess mentally, if you do everything and you know in your mind you do everything to get ready and to give yourself the best opportunity to win, then you can kind of be at peace with the result.
Mm.
Because anything can happen in there, you know, like you could, you know, something could happen, you could slip, you could get caught. There's so many variables that could happen, but the only constant is how you prepare yourself and how you get ready. So you need to go in there knowing that you did everything because you're the one that has to look yourself in the mirror. And fighting is one of the most honest sports, I guess people will tell you that you can do, because if you compete for long enough, people will see exactly who you are. You know, you can't hide in there. It's just the two of you. And I mean, listen, it's basically like modern day Gladiator, like in the Coliseum. There's just two people. They lock it behind you, and then it's just like, okay, only one of you guys can win. And for me, it has to be me. So I say, like, if I'm getting ready for a certain date, I obviously know the date, you know, 6, 8, 12 weeks ahead. But if I'm fighting, let's say April 1st, to me, the world ends April 2nd. So I do everything I can to make sure that I'm the one winning that. And that's kind of all I think about. For me, it's just getting, I don't think about, you know, beating the shit out of somebody or hurting somebody. It's just, it's still a job. And I'm
Mhm.
professional, so I conduct myself like a professional. And if you're really professional in everything that you do, you show up on time, you prepare properly, you have all your stuff, just like any other job. You know, if you're working in construction, you don't show up without your tools, right? So you just kind of have to treat it like any other thing that you do that you want to be successful at. And the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it.
So when you know you have a fight coming up, how long of a period is it for you to like start preparing for that?
So usually I'll find out like minimum 8 weeks before. Usually 12 weeks is ideal.
Yeah.
But as far as preparation goes, I'm always training because I enjoy it. People do it in different ways. Some people really take time off in between, and then once they find out they have something, they'll start training and ramping up. But I enjoy the training. I enjoy being in the gym, so I'm in the gym pretty much the same amount whether I have a fight or not. The only difference is for me is the diet gets a little stricter because you have to make a certain weight. And
Hmm.
other than that, if the person has uh, a certain attribute, like if they're particularly tall or they're maybe left-handed, or they have, I'll try to bring in like partners to spar with that kind of are very close to their body type, just to make it as close as possible to what that situation would be.
Okay.
But other than that, the training is pretty the same for me all year round.
Okay.
So let's say if somebody that's listening, like maybe they don't want to do sports, or maybe they do, maybe their kids, want to do sports. What would be some advice that you can offer maybe a mom that's listening for their kid that wants to do sports? Like what, because you do training now, you do personal training. Like how, like what advice could you give like a parent maybe that their kid wants to go and do sports?
I feel like no matter what, and no matter your kid's athletic level or their the ceiling that they can reach in whatever sport, I think every kid should do a sport. Even though at the
Hmm.
time my dad wanted me to focus on school, he told me you have to play one sport. And I don't care what it is, you can pick, but you have to play one sport because you learn a lot of things that will build habits that you're going to do for the rest of your life, right? Like problem solving, teamwork, getting along with others, especially now. Like, we didn't do social media and stuff like that when
Yeah.
I was in school. So you can literally go your whole day and not talk to another human being face to face. And people are okay with that. And then you'll speak to some people and it's like they've never spoken before, like they need practice talking. So just that kind of stuff will make them better people. Like I notice a lot of
Hmm.
the kids that I train are hockey kids, probably 70%, very disciplined, very
Mhm.
polite, good manners, very professional. And like you take the other 90% of like kids I run into, and that's not the case. uh,
Yeah.
so I always say, like, even with like obviously a lot of the parents that I train their kids, their dream is to play in the NHL. That's the dream that they want, their kids. But I say that even if they don't, they're building good habits that they can have the rest of their life, even just working out in general. I started because my dad was in shape. He showed me how to work out at 12 years old, and I haven't stopped. And, I'm not going to, because this is something that, makes me feel good, keeps your body healthy. So you don't have to be a great athlete. You don't even have to be a good athlete. But I think you should do something to, keep yourself healthy and keep your mind healthy, because, healthy body, healthy mind, all that stuff,
Hmm.
goes hand in hand with, mental health and stuff like that people are, bringing up more nowadays. That's not even something we thought about. I was always just a happy kid because I was doing what I like to do.
Mhm. I don't think enough people do what they want to do, like
Hmm.
we are in a society where it's like you need to become a lawyer, you need to do this, and like everyone's miserable, and then we drink and numb and run away from life. Um, so speaking of that, like how has that affected your life, like with being social or drinking or partying or doing any of that stuff? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, for me, it was one of those things where, like, in rugby, like the social is kind of a big part of it. After you go out and you drink and so on. Me personally, I stopped drinking. I think in my really early 20s. I just wasn't something for me, and but I would still go out. Like I still have fun, go to events. I just don't drink. I never felt the pressure where people are like, what do you mean you don't drink? So for me, I was, I always just kind of did my own thing, and I never felt the pressure of that. But it never really affected me socially. The thing is for me, I was just so focused on what I was doing. If there was times where people would be like, "Oh, come out, we're going to this thing," I'd be like, "No, I have a game tomorrow, or I have training tomorrow, so I don't want to do that." And even if they were like, "Oh, come on, we're going to do this," I'd be like, "No, I'm fine." And I never worried about that kind of stuff because I was kind of focused on my own goals and doing
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. For me, it was just kind of like I know people give into those kind of pressures, um, but I feel like if you do that, like that's because you're giving in to other people's wants. Like for me, it was always a thing like whether or not I drink shouldn't affect if you have a good time or not. So you shouldn't worry about what I'm doing. Worry about what you're doing. And all I can say is I just remember a lot of the friends that I had at that time. That kind of circle changed when I started training, jujitsu or being more into sports because it was more hanging around with people that were like-minded, like myself. Because those were people that will motivate you and are on the kind of the same path as you. So all I would say was just that a lot of the friends that I had that were like, "Oh, come on, you're boring. Come out, have some fun." Those are the same friends that still live in their parents' basement right now. You know what I mean? And they're
Mm-hmm.
still having fun because they're doing the same thing that they were doing 20 years ago. So I guess that's for me. Like I have that social. I don't feel like I miss out on that. I see people every day, and I get to hang out with those guys every day. And these guys are all really positive people. So my circle now is a lot smaller, but it's a lot more solid. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess you could say it that way.
Yeah, who you put yourself around makes a big difference.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about like training? So tell us a little bit about what you do now. Like who are the people that you train and like what training do you do like for your clients?
So I have a pretty good mix of clients. I would say though, like probably 70% of my clients are athletes. A lot of hockey kids where I live. Hockey, football, rugby. The other 30% are just people that want to get in better shape, just standard personal training. And I have some people that just come to do boxing with me just because they want an alternative type of cardio. So for the athletes, any kind of fast twitch contact sport, I train them basically like I would train a rugby player because their needs are pretty much similar, right? Fundamental movements, compound lifts. Um, One thing that has become really popular, kind of niche, and that's because of social media, is specificity for a certain movement in training where you might play hockey and they'll get you doing some movement with the weight that looks like this, but in my opinion, and more people are coming out saying this now, the gym is for getting strong. The gym is for getting as strong as you can, as explosive as you can, and the sport is for doing the sport. So my job is to get these kids as strong as they can, explosive as they can, increase their vertical, all these things that will translate onto the ice. Especially now, a lot of the kids that I have are like 13, like 12, 13, 14, and that's around the age where they're allowed to start hitting.
Mhm.
So also putting on the bone density, injury prevention, right? There's a lot of benefits to lifting weight for them that is not just related around strength, right? If you're injured and you're not on the ice, you're not getting better.
Mhm.
So that's my focus for them. And then for the average, person that wants to come in, just foundational programs, right? Like another thing that, social media has really done is they've kind of made it unrealistic in terms of like you'll see for example a trainer getting their client to stand one-legged on a Bosu ball doing a kettlebell exercise, some movement to catch somebody's eye, right?
Mhm.
To catch views, to catch someone's eye, and then if somebody hires them as a trainer, if they're actually a good trainer, they'll stick to basically the fundamental things that have, worked for years, traditional strength training, right? So I'll put together programs for them based on their needs, where they need to put on muscle, which helps burn fat. Okay. And then I have my degree in nutrition as well. So obviously the nutrition is 95% of it. So if they're looking to lose weight, I really help them with the nutrition side of it. And for the people that are boxing, just alternative cardio. But it's nice to have kind of that wide range of clients, because then you can adapt to everybody. Because if you just want to box yourself into one part, like I just want to do athletes, well, one, not everyone is an athlete, and two, a lot of them that have the discipline will train on their own, because I didn't have a trainer. We couldn't afford it, but even if we could, I trained on my own. So most of the people that really need the help are people that weren't in the gym before. They're just starting in the gym on their journey. Sorry, the dogs are scrapping behind me. They're moving the blinds. But yeah, I like having that variety of people, because you meet a lot of really cool people, a lot of different people, and again, it's part of the social, right? Like I go out, I go to work, I get to chat with these people for like an hour each session, and I enjoy it. They're great people. Most of them end up becoming my friends. So so kind of one goes hand in hand with the other, right? So it's like you're not sitting in a cubicle miserable with people around you that you don't like, right? I like all of my clients because I work for myself. If I didn't enjoy training somebody, I would just say, maybe we're not the right fit, and it's very rare that it happens. So I get to train and work with people that I enjoy as well. And they're all people that are positive, people that are trying to do something. So I think that's why I just like to surround myself, with that positive atmosphere. And it just makes for a good atmosphere for myself.
Mm.
What defines an athlete? When you were just saying now, like not everyone is an athlete. Like what defines an athlete?
I think a lot of people are maybe genetically athletic. But I think the mindset and the mental is a big part of it, because I'll see a lot of times, whether it's on one level, somebody that does really well in practice and then they don't compete well. And that 10% is usually in the mindset, because there was even guys that I remember playing club rugby with. And then when I went to Ireland, I was like, I would always think that these guys that I played with, these guys can be professional, they're good, but it's that 10%. It's just that little, it's that little intangible, whether it's, determination, just grit, like you just have it or you don't have it. It could come from your upbringing, it could come from just like learned behavior. But if you're talking about like, the highest levels, then it is that, and once it gets to the highest levels, you're talking about, 2%. There's a guy that lives in my town. He played in the NHL. I train his son. And I really enjoy talking to him, because it's just like, it's like talking to myself, right? Like like I'll say things that like he'll understand, because it's just like very few people reach that. But mindset is very important, especially like in I think combat sports. Like you'll see interviews where people say it's probably like 90%, because everyone can work hard and everyone can do that stuff, but it's the mental is a very big part of it.
Yeah, like you have to have really strong discipline and motivation.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I enjoy doing this, but it's I'll do anything to be successful at it, right? And I've tried to make that every part of my life, right? Like when you talk about anything like being professional, it's also being professional like in outside of that, when no one's watching. Like when you're at home alone, you can eat whatever you want, as an adult, I can go to the grocery store and buy a chocolate cake right now, but I don't, because it's like gonna affect my training, right? I could go out, I could drink, I could party, but I don't. So the things you do when no one's watching, those are the things that matter, right? If you want to look good in front of thousands of people, you got to work hard in front of nobody, because that's when it's being put in the deep dark places, I call it.
Yeah.
It's true. Like same in the work that Krystle and I do, right? You have to like first face yourself, right? And then when you face yourself, you can then help others. Like there's no way, like you have to embody what you want to see. And Like, there's no way that I can go and like help somebody with an addiction if I'm sitting here like, oh, I'm just gonna like numb this problem or numb this thing. Like, you have to be so self-aware and so in the work that we do, like we call these things shadows. So you have to be able to
Mhm.
face your shadows, like the things that come up that like want to put you backwards technically in life. Like, you have to face that like directly in the mirror. So, is there like a way that you cope with things that come up in your life? Like, let's say like stress or like I want to get in your mind. Like, how do you like this is just how I am. I'm like picking at a scab. Like, how do you face stress or like challenges that come up?
Yeah, like if you get sick or something.
Well, I think like for me, like I'm very lucky in the way that like my stress is very minimal just because of the life that I've created for myself. Like
Yeah.
I work for myself and I enjoy what I do. So, I enjoy getting up the next day and going to work. I don't have that, stress usually comes from like either work or money,
Hmm.
um, and things like that. So for me, like, for an example, like because I enjoy what I do, I don't have that. So one example is when I went outside the other day, I saw one of my, like last week, I saw one of my neighbors and I was like, hey, good morning. How are you doing? And they're like, oh, thank God it's Friday. And I didn't even know what day of the week it was because
Hmm.
like that doesn't affect me, right? Like I work every day because I enjoy it. And I never think, oh man, thank God it's Friday. Now the weekend is here and I don't have to go back to like, I can't
Yeah.
imagine like hating your job just to wait for the weekend, just to once Sunday comes around, have the anxiety of waking up Monday and having to do it all over
Hmm.
again.
Hmm.
So in terms of work, I guess like where most people are, I would guess that would contribute to like probably at least 70% of their stress because it's, work and money. I don't have that. And then, I have the ultimate stress relief every day where I get to go, whether I'm just lifting or whether I get to go train, it's the ultimate stress relief for me. So, I get to go, I get to train, I get to get that aggression out. And then when I come home, I'm just, a relaxed guy hanging out with the dogs. So maybe it's not like the same answer everyone else can benefit from, but I think you just have to do what makes you happy. Like there's
Hmm.
things I could have done to make more money for sure. I had my real estate license for a while. I was like, okay, I'll try this. I hated it. I hated going showing properties at night. It wasn't for me. Um, but I really feel like I feel like maybe 80% of people hate their job.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe 15% of people can tolerate their job. Maybe 3% like their job, and maybe that 2% love their job. And I fall in that 2%. So I'm really lucky. I love my job. I can't wait to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
So for me, like my stress is pretty minimal. Um, if something does come up, like a situation that's kind of out of my control, I always just think try to spin it to a positive. Like number one, it can always be worse. Like I try to use
Yeah.
that. And number two, it's hard for me to get flustered by a lot because I came from nothing. You know what I mean? So there was times where we didn't think we were going to eat. So when someone tries to, I'll always sympathize with people when they'll tell me their problems, and then I'll think in my head like, man, if you grew up like I did, this
Hmm.
would not even be an issue for you. So I think part of where you come from and what you can handle is a big thing because problems are all relative, right? Like for me, having a real big issue uh, wouldn't affect me that much. Where some people not having Wi-Fi would crush them. So
Yeah.
it really just depends on how you handle that, right? So I don't know if
So
that answers
true.
your question.
I just want to share this with you. You don't know this, but you mentioned about the motel on Kingston Road. That's actually where my life changed, is I was living in a motel on Kingston Road using, and it's there where I flushed my drugs and decided to change my life. So I just think that's really
That
random.
does not surprise me at all.
Yeah,
Was it the Take a Nap Motel?
have an app,
Have it. That's where I lived.
Uh-huh. Yeah, of course. That's exactly. Yeah.
literally. Yep. And then I worked there for $4 a room, I cleaned. I made the decision. I was like, this is not, I'll just share this on here. What happened was I was using meth. I was on Percocets. I was like, it was so bad. And somebody came up to me, this chick who was like, she was like an angel in disguise. Like she was like, the cops are coming because the guy I was dating at the time, it was like really, he was like doing like B&Es at night, break and enters, Krystle. And Crystal's my little angel of a human, doesn't know what a beanie is. And this woman, this chick named Green Eyes warned me, and she was like, the cops are gonna come, blah, blah, blah. And at the same time, there was like these guys that were like wanted to pimp me out. And I was like, I don't know what kind of mess I've gotten myself into. Like I was just like having a party that got way, 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 way too far. And like I remember that day, I'm like, I am not built for like this lifestyle. Like this is not who I am. And I flushed the drugs and I worked for $4 a room cleaning the rooms. And that's how I got enough gas money to like get out of there. Like it was fucking hell. Like that motel though changed my life.
That's amazing. Do you remember exactly the day that that happened, that she said that to you? And all of a sudden you had that moment of like, oh my God,
Yeah, no, I like it is like burned in my brain. Like I will
that's
never.
amazing.
That is like
Yeah.
burned. It is like for everything that I do, that is my fuel. Like I don't think about
Yeah.
it, but it fuels me for everything that I do.
Like sometimes you have to experience the worst to appreciate the best.
Yeah.
You like, it's like you have to walk through hell and be like, my life is really good,
Well,
you
yeah, like
know?
I think that's like with even with Jason, like
Yeah.
you experience life at such like such a low, or like not having that when you get like a taste of something that's positive, like you just want to run with it.
Yeah. It becomes your driver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Beautiful. That's when I had my spiritual awakening. I
we
experienced a night of hell and I was like, this can't be it. It was like this moment of like, what have I gotten myself into?
yeah.
Exactly kind of your same situation where I was like, this can't be it.
Yeah.
There's got to be better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we don't realize either, like the path that we're on in life until something really bad happens, and then we're like, it's like a wake up call. It's like,
Yeah.
how did I get here? Like, what am I doing? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it just happens so gradually,
Yeah.
slowly. It's like it slowly happens. And then you get to that. Well, for some people, that's rock bottom, you know,
Yeah.
when they have a moment of realization where they've lost everything or something really big and traumatic happens to kind of wake you up and make you see life differently.
Jason, can you tell us the story about just because this is like all based on like everything's soul based with us.
Hmm.
And I really think that story that you told me about how MMA saved your life is like something that our audience would appreciate.
Yeah, it kind of goes kind of hand in hand with like your story and Krystle's story, like where when you're on that certain path and it might be not great, but you don't, once you're in it, you don't really see it that way because it might just not seem that bad until you remove yourself and look at it like an outsider. So when I was back, I had just the same group of friends kind of that I went to school with, just kept in touch with them. And the thing is, none of these people were like what I would call bad people, but they were just not going anywhere. Like they were doing the same stuff, and if I look at them now, they're probably still doing the same stuff. So I remember the night that I was going to my first jujitsu class. They wanted me to come out. This group of friends, three friends, they're like, "Oh, we're just gonna go. We're gonna go grab weed from somebody and go smoke, in the park or something like that." I'm like, "No, I'm gonna go. I signed up for this jujitsu thing. I'm gonna go try this out tonight. I want to try it." And they were like, "Oh no, that's stupid. Come out with us." And I'm like, "No, no, I already, sign up for this thing. I'm gonna go try it just like normally. Like I still always just follow my own path." But these were the group of friends that I was with, right? So you show me your friends, I'll show you who you are. So anyways, I go to this jiu-jitsu class, and like I said, I get totally destroyed my first night. And when I get home, I'm thinking, okay, this is not for me. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna decompress. I turn on the TV. I turn on the TV. The news is on, and I see my friends on the news. So basically, what had happened is my friends at the time thought that we're gonna get weed from this guy, but if we rob him, it'll be cheaper. So
Mm.
they got into a tussle, and one of the group stabbed the guy with a Swiss Army knife. So he stabbed him in the lat. The Swiss Army knife is small. He just was just trying to get out of the tussle or whatever. And the kid that he stabbed went home, didn't want to tell his parents what happened, and he bled to death in his sleep.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so the next day, like I said, my friends are all wanted for murder. So obviously, if I'm there, I wasn't going to do anything because I'm not an idiot, but I would have been put at the scene there. So that was a big indicator to me that, like like you were saying with your stories, like sometimes in life you'll come to that fork in the road, and the way you go
Mhm.
will really define your life. So these friends, former friends, obviously went all to prison for 3 years because none of them would say what happened. They were looking out for each other, and then after 3 years they were all released because they couldn't pin it on anybody. And so I guess in their minds they were thinking like, oh, okay, we're out now, everything is great. But the kid that they had killed was the son of a Hell's Angel in Scarborough. So within about 2 weeks of them getting released, they all disappeared. So that was a big sign for me to like really turn things around, because like I said, these weren't people that were like doing really bad stuff, but essentially they were losers, and I was friends with them. If I was in that group, I was just one of them. So
Mm.
that's when I started putting everything into jujitsu, because to me it was a sign that this is the reason why I can do what I do now. So I put all my effort and focus on that, because now it was just like doing things that are positive. And then ever since I got to you know a higher level where you can start to train, like teach and train, like I'll always try to give back, because this is something that's done so much for me. So I'll do seminars to raise money. We did one for cancer, humane society, just for basically any cause that I think is a good cause, because I think if you are in a position where you can use your platform to do something good, it's just going
Mhm.
to bring positive vibes to you. And there's a lot of people that can't do that. And I always tell people in most classes that I teach, like, be grateful that you can step on the mats and that you can come in and train, because a lot of people can't do that, right? Like we did a
Yeah.
seminar for a girl, Isabella, that was in an accident, and she's in a wheelchair. She was a 14-year-old girl that had an unfortunate accident. She's paralyzed now, but like this is another athlete just like them, right? So this
Mhm.
can happen to anybody. So you have to just understand what you have, and be grateful for the little things you have.
Yeah. Amen.
Gratitude gets you far, really. If you
Does.
you can, I think so much in our society, like Krystle and I talk about this all the time. Everyone's focused, and this happens, I think, to all of us. We're all human, right? It's like, oh, I want more. I want the next thing. I want the next thing. But it's like, wait, like, what do you have? And it goes as simple as like being grateful for just like having a bed, having a roof over your head, like being able to eat, right? Let alone
Mhm.
eat organic.
Yeah, exactly. So true.
But it's
I
true.
really do believe redirection is God's protection, though. Like the night that you had a choice to either go to jujitsu or go out with your friends, and you're like, no, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that is just truly proof. There's always a higher path.
Yeah, I think people get faced with those choices all the time. um, and like the way the decisions you make will define who you are.
Yeah.
And like then after that it was just easier. Like I've been put in those situations like since then, where you have to choose, and it's always then you're always smarter about what you choose because you remember that. So now it's, to me, it's not a risk because, I'm always choosing, what I think is the good, right?
Yep.
Everything for the good. And that stuff always comes back around.
Yep, it does. Good karma. Absolutely. Yep.
So what are your like future plans for your career? Like, is there anything that you'd want to accomplish?
For me now, like, I'm still enjoying competing right now while I can keep my body healthy. But I'm moving now more into the next phase, which is like, teaching more, training more. I really enjoy that part of it, and you know, getting getting that next white belt ready because everyone was there when they started. So when people come into my class and they're new, it motivates me when they say, "Oh, you that move that you tried, or the move that you showed, I tried it and it worked." And like, I just remember being that white belt, thirsty for knowledge when I would learn something and it would just blow my mind and it would make me so happy, and I would just be like, "Okay, I can't wait to do this next time." Or when you have that student that does their first competition and they do well. So for me, I get a lot of that gratification through that, or even with personal training, I lost weight or I feel better or whatever. So
Mhm.
for me, it was just kind of like um, just continuing to kind of do what I like and enjoy doing, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. Like teaching more, you know, having more clients, opening a gym in the future is probably the next step. Um, but right now I'm just having so much fun. I'm just having so much fun doing what I'm doing, that I just kind of do everything one day at a time. So, but when you get your name more out there, when you're kind of results based, like I'll get people reaching out to me from like the States for nutrition plans and even like uh, other programs. So business wise, maybe just moving a little bit more into the online stuff just because it can reach more people.
Mhm.
But I still enjoy what I'm doing so much. I would never stop the one-on-one training. I tell people all the time, like, if I won the lottery tomorrow, my life would be exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, uh, I wouldn't really. There's nothing I need, and so my life would look exactly the same. Maybe I'd have another dog. That's about it.
That's how you know you're living a good life.
Yeah,
Yeah, Krystle and I say that all the time. Like
Yeah.
I'm doing the exact thing that I want to do, that I
Yeah.
love doing. There's nothing, I mean, maybe I'd have a different car, maybe, but maybe not. Like I have everything I need.
yeah.
I might take a few more vacations,
Well, you don't take
you
any
know.
vacations.
I know. That's what I'm saying is I would take a few more vacations, but other than that,
Mhm.
I love my life too.
Can
Yeah.
you just give us a little bit of advice, like for someone listening, if someone's struggling with perhaps if they're overweight, and what advice would you give somebody to start on their journey? Aside from hiring you, how can you help somebody?
I think there's a lot of things that are good advice, but you just have to start yesterday. Like a lot of people will use, I don't want to say it's an excuse, but they'll say like, "Oh, I want to get in a bit better shape before I start in the gym," which to me makes no sense. Like you go to the gym for that.
Hmm.
You just have to get in there and get consistent because it takes 6 months to build a habit, whether it's a good habit or a bad habit. So just go. Like walk in the door. Once you walk in the door, you're going to start. Also, some people have the mindset that if, for example, if they're overweight, "Oh, I don't want to go because I feel like people are looking at me." Trust me, people are so in their own world, they're not even paying attention to you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like I could walk in there wearing a dinosaur costume and I don't think anyone would notice.
Yeah.
So that would be the first thing. The second thing would be like, obviously, if you're losing weight is your goal and that's your goal, like, stay on that goal, but take the small victories as small goals. Like when I was doing like sports or MMA, you you want to obviously have the big goal to be a champion, to be a world champion, but set those smaller goals that you're going to hit on the way, those checkpoints on the way that are going to lead to that bigger goal. So, okay, this week I went to the gym. If I'm a newbie, I went to the gym twice. Next week I'm going to go 3 times.
Hmm.
I did 10 minutes cardio this week. Next week, I'm going to do 15, right? Small things that you know you can achieve, because every time you achieve something, it's going to make you feel good. Every time you
Yep.
don't, it's going to make you feel bad. So if you say to yourself, oh, I want to lose 40 pounds, and it doesn't happen in the first 2 weeks, people are demotivated because they want that quick fix, right?
Right.
Think about the little things that are going to change for you right away. You're going to have more energy. You're going to feel better. You're going to be more confident. Your clothes will fit better. Things like that. If you're eating better, you'll just feel better. You'll sleep better.
Mhm.
So set those little small goals that you can achieve every week that will help you check off. And then that will eventually lead to the bigger goal of whatever you're trying to do, right?
Okay, we have one more question for you. What does it mean to you to have an empowered heart?
I think for me, it's like when I was talking about before, like getting to do what I like when you like what you're doing or like that the path that you're on, I guess you're always going to feel that way. You're always going to feel like, your heart is full, you're positive. Um, I always try to do that, and then just to spread that. Like you remember when we were at the gym the other day, saw somebody they had lost a lot of weight since I seen them. And to a lot of people, just making that comment to them could make their day. So I remember I was like, man, you lost a lot of weight, you're crushing it, keep going. And that will make a difference, because most people won't say that, whether they notice it or not, because they think, oh, it's, might be strange to say or whatever. But if I see people in the gym, even if they probably haven't lost anything, I'll say, man, you've been really consistent. I see you here every day. Good for you. Or like if
Yep.
I see somebody like older and they're in good shape, I'm like, that's a window into my future. That's what I want to be like, man. Like, they'll be like 60-year-old people. They're like, you're in good shape. It lets me know that I'm on the right path. I want to look like you when I'm 60. You're killing it. Like, so
Mhm.
just, making people feel good around you too is probably the easiest way to have, like, I guess, that empowered heart. Like, cause
Yep.
people will see you as positive, and it doesn't matter what you do. More people like know me around the gym just for being like, the positive trainer with the bad ears. Then a lot of people probably don't even know what I do for a living. Like, they probably have no idea that I fight. But if you ask them, they'll be like, Jason's a nice guy. And to me, that's
Mm,
more important.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true. What about you, Morgan?
Um, hmm. I would say lately it's been focusing on the things that are going right instead of wrong.
Mm,
I know that I like my mind can be my enemy. It's also what makes me it's like the most special thing I have is my overthinking. But like it can go one way or the other. And so I think lately just taking in like what is going right and really focusing on that and letting that fill up my cup.
mm,
What about
amen.
you?
Ah, I feel like lately it's really just about presence. And I think I've said this 1,500 times on this podcast, but like just being present and trying not to like skip ahead, you know? It kind of goes hand in hand with life is really good. It's like it's the cup half full or half empty, and it's like all mindset. And I feel like if we look at it that way, it's always half full.
Mhm.
So just practicing presence and being grateful for, life right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will see you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.